Hello and welcome. Good evening to another episode of Ken's Corner. Ken, how are you doing, my brother? Welcome to the weekend.
Hola, ¿cómo está?
Muy bien.
Bien. Thank you.
Wonderful. Ken, of course, is here this week to do a Atami Shiri Uchi, a headbutt strike to the current events and news. But before we get there, we need a
Hi-ya.
Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. But we're going to postpone that fight and kind of like build up the drama because we promised it. We're going to deliver it. Ken?
Yes.
I believe we have some things to go through.
Yes, and thank you for commenting and liking the video. And the last one, we got a lot of comments, a lot more this time. The more comments and likes we get, YouTube will push this message out. And so the comments of this week's comments are really encouraging, man. I really was encouraged by them. And so I have two comment winners for this week. We started doing this. One is Kathy, 6556, and she said, "Thank you, James and Ken, for your faithful service to the Lord and the fellowship of believers. I too love the t-shirts. Keep them coming. The closing of bank accounts seems to be international phenomenon. It's happening here in the UK." So she's a UK listener and watcher. It sounds very much like the medieval feudal system of impoverishing the seeming enemy of the ruler, even to include their entire family and generations as their punishment. Yes, it does. Fortunately for us, our treasures are stored up in heaven in safe care of Jesus. Keep all you in my prayers with love from Northwest England. That was a good one. And number two, I just had to give two. This is thank you, brothers. These updates are great. And yes, we have to share the gospel while we can. God will bring people on our way, and it's for us to obey. From the Netherlands, Martin. So that's an awesome one too. And I have a couple of honorable mentions. And Eileen Bryanson, she's from Ireland. Hi, Jay and Ken, catching up a bit late due to the difference in Northern Ireland, difference in time. Really enjoy listening to you both. I also watch Good Fight Ministries with Chad and Joe. Keep up the good work, Maranatha. And then the last one, and this is going to be a funny one because it's from Bella Pink Patel. You're both great team together. I really look forward to your show every week. It really would be helpful, Ken, if you get a better mic. And this is what I have, and I'm so dumb. I don't know how to plug it in. I bought a mic. I bought a screen. They came together, and it sounds like he's using the computer mic. Yeah, I'm using the computer mic, but it would really be helpful to hear much more clearly. I promise I'm going to try this week to get this going. I promise. But you guys are an awesome service. You guys are awesome. Thank you for your service. So those are again, thanks for all for listening, commenting. I feel awesome reading those. And as we stay faithful and we wait for the Lord's return, man, just awesome stuff.
Amen. And we actually have a question from Tranland. I'm going to read it. Hi, Jay and Ken. Recently, I've been listening to Good Fight Ministries and do believe they are scripturally sound. I do understand that they have involvement with questionable people like Ray Comfort, is frequently on TBN with Kirk Cameron. Do you have any thoughts on this ministry? Well, I will begin because it just so happens that I am a congregant at Blessed Hope Chapel, which is where Chad is the youth pastor and Joe Schimmel is the senior pastor.
That's where you go.
I am a bit biased, let us say, about Good Fight. I watch them. I love those guys as my Christian brothers. And as far as scripturally sound, I absolutely agree they are scripturally sound. And Ken, you said something very interesting. I understand the reluctance when we're dealing with things like TBN. I absolutely get that. And I'm sure you get that as well.
Yes.
But you said something very, very telling that I'd just like to share. One time someone was asked, would you preach in a Mormon church? And the person didn't even have to think. He said, yes, yes, absolutely. I will go and tell them the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I will tell him who he really is.
Yes.
That's the attitude I think we all need to have. Now, when we partner with people, we can't partner with people that like TBN, that are obviously in the prosperity gospel camp. But as far as like Ray Comfort, I have watched him for years do outreach in Huntington Beach. In fact, he inspired me in my ministry to do street outreach. So I have a soft spot for Ray Comfort. Kirk Cameron I know for a fact that one time Kirk Cameron was hard in the pre-tribulation rapture.
Yeah.
But he recently watched one of the Good Fight videos, and he has softened on his stance.
Yeah. He's like Inner Seal or pre-wrath, towards the post trib, and So, and I know Joe is post trib, but that's all right, man. At least he knows we have to go through part of it, and we have to identify the Antichrist. So yep, I like it.
So that's all I can say, Ken, because I can't really say anything against the place where I've decided to go ahead and become a member.
Yeah. I knew that was your home church. Yep, that was a good comment on. Yeah, keep the comments coming, people. We'll keep sharing, and thank you for listening. And let's get this dog rolling.
Absolutely. And to begin with, and much like questioning and being very reluctant, I'm very reluctant to talk about this update because the numbers, they hurt my heart that much just butchery is going on. The war update is this. You told me that Douglas McGregor was on with a new surveillance. Talk to me about that, Ken.
Okay, it's crazy. It's just I don't know why people cannot see this truth, but Doug McGregor, he's an awesome commentator, and he's a former he's a colonel, former in the first Gulf War, but he just received some overhead surveillance material from Ukraine, and the overhead surveillance pictures show 123,000 freshly dug graves. And the estimate now is that 400,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed thus far. 400,000. I mean, that's insanity. So talking about the Ukrainian counteroffensive, it's gone nowhere and achieved nothing. The sad part is the Ukrainians have been trying to fight World War II, and they're operating in a fundamentally different environment, right? So the truth is we live in a different world today. Nothing happens in this world, yet alone Eastern or Western Ukraine, where Russia is, that the Russians cannot instantly see or instantly track and ultimately target. All right. And the Russians have an array of strike systems which they can strike with. You can't just hide anymore. You're operating in an environment where your opponent sees everything. So we provided Ukraine with some good information, but I don't think our downlinks to them is as good as what the Russians have. I don't. But that's because the Russians have learned over time to link the overhead. They link all their communication, their overhead space-based surveillance with all their strike systems. So you have near instantaneous identification and decision on not whether to, it's going to be targeted. So this runs from tactical level, so about a mile or two, all the way up to strategic level, which is 100 miles, sometimes even 1,000 miles. The second thing is that Ukrainians have been focused by the U.S. on territory, right? Drive out the Russians, get the territory back. And in reality, the Russians have not been interested in territory. They've been interested in destroying the Ukrainian armed forces, killing the Ukrainian army. That's what they're doing. So terrain, the Ukrainians have not been focused on destroying. Yeah. So the terrain is only valuable insofar as it gives you an advantage. If there is no advantage of holding it, it doesn't have value. So the Russians understand that from 1,000 years of history, right? Remember when Napoleon, how much of Napoleon's troops went into Russia, how they recessed back, and he went in with 750,000 troops, and he exited with like 70,000, like I mean, 9/10 of them were died. And then you look at Hitler doing the same thing during the winter, going in and they just pull back. So it's like they've done that for thousands of years. Whether it was the Mongolian hordes or whatever conceivable form of warfare. But the Ukrainians haven't learned this, and I blame the U.S. I blame us for that. We just it's like they're an experiment. It's crazy. But that's my war update. I'm just doing like little updates. I'm not going to do anything more than that. Just a couple pages.
And I'd just like to add a little bit to the context of those numbers that we talked about: 300,000 graves, 400,000 projected casualties for Ukraine. The United States during the Civil War suffered 620,000 casualties. Okay. Ukraine is 2/3 of the casualties for the Civil War. And when you tabulate the deaths and carnage in the Civil War, it equals the carnage in the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the Mexican War, the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, and the Korean War combined.
Wow. Yeah.
So you are looking at death on the level of the American Civil War going on in Ukraine.
That's only 1 year. 1 year. It's only a little over a year. Yeah.
And between 1861 and 1865, 620,000 dead in 1 year.
Yeah. And this is just in a little over 1 year. It's really nuts. The numbers. I don't know where they want it to go. I listened to Colonel McGregor and a couple other people, and their hands are up. They're like, what's going on? Why can't they see this? Why? And the thing is I'm going to go over a majority of Americans. They don't believe we should put aid to Ukraine anymore, and the percentage is changing. It's like it's changing. So it's crazy.
Forgive me, Ken, but also there's an underlying factor in Ukraine. I think we talked about it before. Ukraine is one of the richest, that is the wheat belt of Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have now taken the agriculture off the table for much of the not only the Eastern world, the Eastern European,
the world
but
in general.
the Western European.
Yeah. I forget what the percentage was. It was like 50, 60, 70% of the wheat that came from Ukraine in that area. It was crazy. It was nuts. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I had to go off on that.
Yeah.
All right. Let us go ahead. You did say you wanted to say real quick about the majority of Americans. I think we covered that. So let's move on to the Biden regime.
I still have the majority of Americans. I still have it. It's a CNN poll. Yeah.
Let's go to the CNN poll.
Yeah, the CNN poll. Majority of Americans oppose U.S. aid for Ukraine in the war with Russia. That's the first time ever. And when the lamestream media, I call them, reports on something like this, it's crazy. Overall, 55% say the U.S. Congress should not authorize additional funding to support Ukraine. 45% still say the U.S. should continue to authorize funding. 51% say the U.S. has already done enough to help Ukraine. 48% say we should do more. 17% say the U.S. should participate in combat operations. So there's still a majority of Americans who believe that Russia's war with Ukraine will threaten the national security. So there's 56% that think that, but it's down significantly since February of last year. 72% believe that it was a threat to security. So it's down almost 20%. Nearly 8 out of every 10 are worried that the war will continue without resolution for a long time. About 6 out of every 10 worry that the war will lead to a broader war in Europe. And about 2/3 are concerned that the war in Ukraine will lead to increased threats to democracy elsewhere in Russia, or lead to Russia attacks elsewhere. The survey also found broad partisan and ideological divides on how much the U.S. should be doing to assist Ukraine. Republicans broadly say that Congress should not authorize new funding, 71%. So, and among the Democrats, most say the opposite, right? Like I said, previous shows, it's amazing to me that the peaceful quote unquote Democrat Party is full out for war. It's crazy. Nearly 2/3 of Democrats back military training, and an even larger partisan gap over providing weapons to Ukraine. 61% of Democrats, as opposed to 30% of Republicans. So it's crazy how the Democrats, they want war. It's weird.
And all at a time where they're actually talking about doing another draft.
Yeah, yeah.
For Americans. Yep. And
yep.
I can tell you, I don't think America's ready for that.
No. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I think the young kids would be like, nope. Yeah. But that's I just wanted to get those stats in, because those are really interesting to me.
Absolutely.
Really interesting. Yep.
You know what's really interesting to me is the Biden regime. I mean, the Biden administration has been doing a lot lately to, be cordial with their social media friends. In fact, we talked a little bit about they don't like jokes. They don't have any like sense of comedy. It seems they're, they just want to be serious all the time. Talk to me a little bit about the no more joking on Facebook.
So the Biden, I'll say regime pressured. Now it's coming out that they pressured Facebook to ban jokes. Wipe that smile off your face, peasant. The Biden regime has an ever lengthening record of opposing to freedom of speech. We remember in the Twitter files that the regime pressured Twitter to remove dissenting tweets. Right? Remember that. It thus comes as no surprise that regime pressured Facebook as well as Twitter to remove posts that dissented from its line, on say COVID-19 and anything. What's striking is that the regime even hassled Zuckerberg's employees to take down jokes making fun of the regime's line on the vaccines. So as Thomas More put it long ago, the devil, the proud spirit, cannot endure to be mocked. And it makes me think of Psalm 2. Remember Psalm 2? He who sits in the heavens laughs, the Lord scoffs at them. So I can't help but always think when we're making fun of the other side. But so you can't make fun of you can't make fun of authoritarian regimes. Someone in the National Socialist Germany who tossed off even the most harmless little quip about Hitler was looking at prison or hard labor. So the Biden regime isn't quite there yet, but yet. Wasn't it their own Saul Alinsky who pointed out the power of ridicule as a rhetorical weapon against the class enemy? It was infuriating to be on the receiving end. So ridicule is supposed to be a weapon of the leftists. That the weapon, it's a weapon the leftists use, not one that's used against them. But this revelation came from unnamed Facebook vice president who was in charge of content policy. He stated in the Wall Street Journal that we were under pressure from the administration and others to do more. He also said we shouldn't have done it. So wait a minute, what? Someone worked for Facebook who was against the government. It was kind of weird. So, but the Facebook vice president said in an internal email, there is likely a significant gap between what the White House would like us to remove and what we are comfortable removing. The White House has previously indicated that it thinks humor should be removed if it is premised on the vaccine having some side effects. So we expect it would similarly be, we would similarly want to see humor about vaccine hesitancy removed. So the fact that this regime pressured Facebook to remove dissident posts that's just the beginning. So Facebook also removed biblical posts, right? Remember, I forget 2 shows ago I talked about that. But this is I've been sharing this weekly. It's a microcosm of just what's coming, persecution to believers. It's just little bits and pieces. So I like sharing a big story each week on what I see coming.
A rhetorical question, really. I don't expect people to answer, but you can if you'd like. The same government that gave us these vaccines that nobody wants to take now, the same government that did the Tuskegee experiment on black men, giving them syphilis and making them have it for 40 years and monitoring it, the same government that put Japanese in internment camps, the same government that used Japanese in the 442nd as cannon fodder, is going to tell you that aliens are real,
Yes.
and that they're there to help.
Yes.
I
And then
just,
you could go on and on. I mean, that's just a short list right there. That's just stuff that comes to your head.
I
You
know.
could go on and on and on and on and on. People that trust the government, I know we're supposed to pray for them, but trust and prayer are two different things.
Yes. One gun at the JFK assassination.
Yes, yes, yes. The one, yeah, yeah. The impossible shot, and one
Yes.
shot that went through, went through the
Everybody.
senator. Yeah, everybody went through everybody. But yeah, I have a related. The big tech censors criticism of government COVID policies and scientific research as the pandemic starting to fade. Right. So you mentioned the vaccines. I got a crazy stat on vaccines. But sidebar, Americans have appeared to have moved on from COVID-19. But Pfizer considers cost cuts as Americans yawn at the future COVID treatments and shots. So they got to come up with something else, right? Pfizer made an announcement on a quarterly earnings call reflecting the public's apathy towards the virus and the declining government support for COVID products. The company estimated in January that 100 million COVID vaccines would be administered throughout the United States in 2023. That's this year. Pfizer accounting for 60% of them. But during the first 6 months of this year, just 12.4 million shots were administered. So that's crazy. 100 million to 12.4. That's beyond. And yeah, they messed that one up. So the misinformation police are continuing to target speech and scientific research that criticizes or counters federal government claims regarding COVID. So this is again a microcosm of what has become the full-blown persecution. So kind of like what you guys said, talked about that on Catching Up, the Wisconsin kid, right, who was arrested for preaching in front of the drag event. Yeah, I was going to do a little bit of that, but you guys covered that pretty good. So, it's just all these little microcosms that's happening. But that was, but you went to school there. You went to school in
Watertown, Wisconsin. I was there for 2 weeks before they kicked me out. I'm not going to go into that story. That's another time. But I want to talk a little bit about beyond that. I would like to talk a little bit about the politically weaponized Gestapo at the DOJ.
Yes. Oh, man.
We could talk about police and police overstep, but let's talk about police corruption.
Yeah.
And the law being weaponized.
And again, this is what comes, for believers, for uncompromising true believers. This is what comes. You're going to have to make a stand. But the political weaponized DOJ of the Biden administration, the political weaponized Justice Department is targeting friends and allies of President Trump. They're not. So WWE, which is the wrestling, right? WWE chairman Vince McMahon got served with a search warrant and grand jury subpoena. So if you remember McMahon's MAGA ties, include his wife, Linda. She served as Trump's administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration, but as multiple corruption allegations engulf the Biden regime, conservative commentators have claimed this is nothing more than an effort to deflect attention away from these allegations. They came for Trump's friends, Vince McMahon, and they'll eventually come for Trump's friend, Dana White, is what someone tweeted. And that's, he's Dana White spoke at both the 216 and the 220 Republican conventions. But Trump actually mentioned McMahon in a recent Erie, Pennsylvania rally. He talked about what a great guy he was. I guess a Trump endorsement is the mark of death, but they're not even hiding it anymore. They're just going straight after. And that's why I'm looking at the bank accounts. I'm looking at all this stuff. Just when will they go after the Christians? When will they go after, us? Well, they kind of are right now, but in little microcosms.
It's almost if unless you subscribe to their propaganda, you're going to be penalized. You're going to go to jail. You're going to be scrutinized to the point that there is no return for you.
Bank account closed. You're not going to be, and this is all part of, you got to take the mark. You won't be able to do any business unless you take the mark.
No.
So this is all just shutting people down to where the mark comes in, and it's just a precursor. It is. It really is a precursor.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the mark and potential people who could be the Antichrist. Let's talk a little bit about Papa Schwab's daughter, his
Mm,
precious little baby. She thinks that we have a little bit too much freedom. Talk to me a
yeah.
little bit about what you told me what she thinks we should do.
So she said, this is a quote: permanent climate lockdowns are coming whether you like it or not. That's a quote from Klaus Schwab's daughter. So the daughter of WF founder Klaus Schwab has boasted that permanent climate lockdowns are coming. According to Nicole Schwab, the COVID pandemic was a tremendous opportunity to test how the public would comply with the WEF's plan to usher in the Great Reset agenda. The WF has been pushing the idea of climate lockdowns since COVID first emerged. But in an article published by the WF, the organization louds how billions of people complied with COVID restrictions. The unelected organization argued that the public would do the same under the guise of reducing carbon emissions. So that's very interesting. An article suggests that the same fear tactics could be used to impose further restrictions, quote unquote, on the general public. Schwab's group notes that improvements in tracking and surveillance technology are helping to overcome political resistance against such programs. But COVID was basically a test of social responsibility. And a huge number of unimaginable restrictions for public health were adopted by billions of citizens across the world. So, but Schwab's group continues on citing how many people complied with the lockdown mandates despite overwhelming evidence of the harmful consequences such restrictions had on society, whether it's on schools or just businesses going out of business, right? So, yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, I mean, we've said this many times, but who's elected Nicole Schwab to be an
Yeah,
expert in anything?
no, no. Or Soros's kid. I forget his name. So Soros's kid.
Yeah.
You know, they're the next generation, and they're one little step crazier than their dads. So
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting world coming up. Yep. Yep.
Uh, all right. So we talked a little bit about the climate lockdowns, but also they're going to, instead of global cooling, we're going to freeze banks now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, following last week's report on the Dr. Mercola and his CEO and CFO getting their accounts and their families' accounts shut down, I'm just keeping track of this. The U.S. banks are abruptly freezing accounts, halting withdrawals without warning or explanation. So U.S. banks are increasingly closing customers' accounts and freezing withdrawals without warning, according to a new report. A growing number of people say they're abruptly losing access to both their checking and savings accounts. And that's a report from CBS Los Angeles. So basically a liberal media group reported this. One example was the account closer of Elad Nahori, who received an ominous alert while logging into his Bank of America account. I'm just using this one example. He then drove to the bank nearest him in West LA, where he was told his account had been shut down and access to his life savings was denied. Nahori said, Bank of America told me it was shut down. They refused to give me an explanation. Banks typically shut down accounts over concerns of suspicious behavior. I think I talked about this. Only 4% of suspicious activity that reports, the SARS that I talked about last week, only 4% of suspicious activity reports submit to bank or law enforcement result in follow-up or arrest or conviction. So Republican attorney generals in 19 states recently accused JP Morgan of persistently discriminating against its own clients and closing bank accounts without warning based on religious and political beliefs. So Nahori said, Bank of America, they got 1.4 trillion in assets, said it would take to 20 days to review his account, 20 days. Meanwhile, he said, all of a sudden I find out I'm broke. I can't feed my family. I can't, pay my expenses. Then a CBS television crew showed up at the bank to film a report. Nahori said the situation changed rapidly. Although his account remained closed, he was granted permission to transfer his money out and send it somewhere else. So first it's 20 days. And there was another related article that I was reading. I'm just going to say a little brief bit on it. We're on the verge of banks running word checks, WRDCHECKS, word checks on customers' social media. So banks are working with credit agencies to roll out word checks on social media accounts to access how worthy of banking facilities members of the public are. Banks have become highly politically active, highly. It's crazy.
Yeah, and when you sign up for online banking, they send you the service agreement that is equivalent to reading War and Peace. Basically as small as it. Yes.
Yeah.
And it seems in modern era, those service agreements are more important than actual laws on books. It only protects one party, the party that is going to be in control of the assets, not the individual who has the asset with whatever party it is.
Yeah, they have 1.7 trillion. Yeah, they it's not about money. It's not about anything. It's like the greed, but hey, love of money. Yeah,
absolutely.
Crazy.
Love of money,
Absolutely.
the beginning of all evil.
Yep.
So I wanted to kind of switch it up to there's lawlessness, obviously, the Justice Department. There's lawlessness in the financial realm of the world, but lawlessness in social media has taken kind of a new step this week. You told me a little bit about the riots that took place. And
so this is in New York. Yeah. And Jesus warns about in the Olivet Discourse, he said, lawlessness will increase, Matthew 24:12. But we're witnessing the rise in lawlessness, and social media influencer charged with chaos erupts in New York City's Union Square. His name is Kai, Kai Senate, Cenant, faces 2 accounts of inciting a riot and unlawful assembly. Thousands. And if you saw the video of it, it was crazy. Thousands of people descended on Union Square. The crowd was responding to Senate's promise of free PlayStations. So I know, the New York PD made 65 arrests. 30 of those were juveniles. But New York PD arrived in droves. They tried to quell the mayhem, which erupted after a post by Senate went viral around 3 p.m., and the officers found themselves under attack. Some of the officers sustained injuries, many of them hit by multiple objects. But they were jumping on cars. It was crazy. They were wild. But just like the BLM riots and Antifa riots, right? We'll be seeing more and more of this. Young people need Christ. They without him, they'll fall for this demonic trap. They'll fall into it.
Things that are going to fill their time.
Yeah, and we're in a crisis where this influencer can control so many. I mean, he's got like 6 million followers on Twitch, another 3 million subscribers on YouTube, and like I think 5 million subscribers on Instagram. But it's shadow what's to come. Maranatha, come Lord Jesus.
Come Lord Jesus.
It's just a shadow. I'm sharing all these things because I look at them as a microcosm, right? I keep saying that, and I just want to keep that in line with people. Just it's a microcosm, and whatever comes out to me, I just like sharing, and I put it in a spiritual aspect, in like lawlessness. That's just you saw lawlessness, and you said the banks and all that other stuff, but people's lawlessness, it's going to increase.
Yeah, well, society's lawlessness stems from the fact that everybody is entitled, and when everybody's entitled without working, how can you have law?
Yeah.
Suddenly everybody needs, equality of outcome.
Yeah. I just remembered something, and I looked in my I forgot to mention my shirt.
That's right.
I forgot to mention my shirt, and somebody probably who hasn't gone through the whole show, but the shirt says, "Your secret is safe with me. I wasn't even listening." So it's a one of my many shirts. All right, sidebar.
That's right. Good sidebar. Your secret is safe with me.
Thank you. Yes. Wink, wink, wink. Oh man, it's awesome.
Moving on. Misinformation. I'm sure that given time we'll be fact checked, and I'm sure we have already been.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the fact checking that the U.S. intelligence is doing.
The U.S. intelligence has been manipulating Wikipedia for over a decade. And this is from the Wikipedia co-founder. All right. He did an interview with with what's his name? Larry Sanger did an interview with oh my gosh, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. But anyway, the Wikipedia co-founder revealed a bombshell concerning long-running suspicions of the U.S. intelligence interference and manipulation of the world's most well-known collaborative online encyclopedia. And we already knew this. We could see it in all the articles that they wrote. But so it's nothing new. But this is kind of, I like getting verification. Larry Sanger spoke to Glenn Greenwald, that's who it is, on his System Update podcast, outlining the efforts of the U.S. intelligence making Wikipedia a tool of control by the left liberal Washington deep state. Sanger said, "We do have evidence that as of 2008, that the CIA and the FBI computers were used to edit Wikipedia." That's crazy. Sanger calls it the most biased encyclopedia in history. He described that the U.S. intelligent manipulation of the immensely large platform and repository of information has been going on for more than a decade. An example is the Biden-Ukraine evidence showing that Hunter Biden was paid $80,000 by Burisma. That's a fact. I mean, he's got that. They got his bank accounts. They got everything. Well, according to Wikipedia, this evidence doesn't even exist. It's just a complete conspiracy theory. So, and remember, this is supposed to be an ideology-free, neutral encyclopedia. So, but also all the COVID entries. I was just remembering all they're heavily subject to propaganda and skewed information. But Sanger explained that prior to a decade ago, Wikipedia used to be a kind of anti-establishment, but then it seemed to be hijacked. And what this reminded me of is a sidebar is the Drudge Report.
Yes.
In 2017, right? We look at Drudge, and I the three institutions that got Trump elected are Alex Jones, Matt Drudge, Drudge Report, and Julian Assange. Those are the three main, and we look at Drudge, and then in 2017, I don't know if China bought it. I don't know what happened. I have no clue. But it's actually where I go. I actually use Drudge Report because it's actually where I go to see what the enemy is thinking. So. But back to the story. Between 2005 and 2012 or so, there was a very definite shift to Wikipedia becoming an establishment mouthpiece. And Sanger states that that's amazing. I would never have guessed that in 2001. So that's when it was. That's when he created it. But it's observed. I've observed this for years. When anyone uses Wikipedia as a reference proof source, I always laugh. It's almost as bad as Snopes, right? But one more example is I looked up Margaret Sanger. I just, her name came to me, and she's a patron saint of woman's choice. No mention of Marge talking about racial purity, the speeches she gave at the Klan rally, or anything like that. So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
A whitewashing of a leftist hero.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's face it. That's what that is.
Yes.
Yes. Speaking of things that have gone from what used to be, let's say, neutral to highly political, let's talk about the Boy Scouts. Man,
yeah, they had Boy Scouts. They pitch a more welcoming tent at they have the National Jamboree, which occurs every 4 years. But I mean, the hundreds of tents erected for the Boy Scouts of America National Jamboree, one stood out. One decorated with a canopy of LGBTQ pride flags and a string of multicolored lights. Its table covered with bowls of rainbow bracelets, pronoun stickers, and diversity patches. But what's sad is there were only 15,000 scouts and volunteers who descended on the 10-day gathering. The number is a fraction of the 40,000 counted at the previous Jamboree, which was in 2017. The meager attendance reflects the weather-beaten state of the Boy Scouts of America. The Boy Scouts of America fully admitted gay men in 2015, trans boys in 2017, and cisgender girls in 2018. And the organization lost nearly half of its membership between 2019 2020 and when the pandemic started. And they had a lot of internal stuff. They had to pay out billions of dollars. They had like some molestation charges. But the event usually happens every 4 years, but the pandemic forced a cancellation in 2021. So this is 2 years after. But it's it's such a solid it was such a solid organization until that just started going woke in 2015. So
you have to ask yourself, who infiltrated it? It couldn't have happened that fast unless people got in there and got into leadership roles.
Yeah, yeah, and then that's the people that are the teachers that are causing all the wokeness basically, and then you have the problem. It's like the priest. It's like all these little microcosms, all these little areas, but they have the molestation charges too. They paid out 2.3 billion or something like that. It's crazy.
Man, almost like the Vatican.
Yes. No, the Vatican's paid out a lot. Vatican paid out 1 billion for one cardinal, I think. I'm trying to think of his name. He was down south in San Diego. But they paid out, 900 million for in defense for one guy. So I've been sharing bad news. I want to share some good news, and I'm going to segue myself that God wins. God will protect us. All right. I just have a little bit of I want to share a verse. I just want to share. I just want to say at this point of the broadcast, all right, that all this insanity going on in this world, we have to remember that we do not serve a God who loses. All right. We serve a God who is in complete and utter control. We serve a sovereign God who holds the world in his hands. And this same God holds you and he holds me in his hands. And I just wrote down a verse I was reading the other day. Isaiah 41:10. God said this to Israel, but it applies to us as well. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with all my righteous right hand. And this is a beautiful promise that no matter what's going on, no matter what's coming against you, no matter the level of depravity surrounding you, God will uphold us. God will protect us. God will help us. So I just wanted to throw that in, and just midway through.
Absolutely. And we know that Jesus is faithful and true.
Amen.
And he is coming again, and he is going to be victorious.
Yeah. That's the reason I'm doing this. He's coming back soon. I don't know how much longer I have to share all this stuff. So, I've already had one heart attack. Who knows?
God, I hope God continues to use you, Ken, for
I hope
many
so
years
too.
to come.
I don't mean to joke about death like that, but my wife always looks at me and elbows me when I say that. But I just, after the heart attack, it's like, you know what, Lord, whenever you're going to take me. So, yep.
I understand.
Yep.
Speaking about, people just deciding to manufacture and spread death.
Man.
The Chinese biolab found in Ridley, California, and not by a military inspector, not by a special chemical and biological weapons agent, but by
just a little they weren't even investigating. They were just inspecting something. And then they saw this hose that went into this building. But this came out last week, right when the podcast was dropping. So there's a little old, but a secret Chinese lab operating in California was uncovered after inspectors found a hose. They found a hose going to an abandoned building. So that was supposed to be an empty building used only for storage. And it was home to black market type stuff, like lab testing facility, man, total. Public health staff observed blood tissue, and other bodily fluid samples and serums. Thousands of vials of unlabeled fluids and suspected biological materials were found. Additionally, they found 900 genetically engineered mice engineered to catch and carry COVID, living in inhumane conditions. So 773 of the mice had to be euthanized. They were just in bad shape. And officials found another 178 mice already dead. It's crazy. But the two statements from both investigators, one guy said, "I've been in government 25 years. I've never seen anything like this." And the other guy said, "I've never seen this in my 26-year career with the county of Fresno." But the substances tested, and they detected at least 20 potential infectious agents, including coronavirus, HIV, hepatitis, herpes, malaria, and E. coli. But Agents also found thousands of package boxes, many with shipping labels from China. And an investigation found the tenant was Prestige Biotech, a company registered in Nevada and unlicensed for business in California. So investigators still have no idea where these tests were being used, right? And the most important question of all is, why was a Chinese lab running in California without regulation? And lastly, did Newsom and his administration know anything about this? All right, you already answered that, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's crazy.
My question immediately, this is why I don't like news. Okay, we understand of all of that, but was there one arrest? Was the person who registered the corporation, like, did they bring him in?
No, they called the guy who was in charge of Prestige Biotech, or they emailed him, and they tried to get in touch with him, and he was in Vegas, I guess, where he's I don't know. It was like they emailed him. Yeah, did they go and after him? Yeah.
Obviously, if you have live mice in a lab, somebody's taking care of those mice.
Yeah. Who's there?
There's got to be footage. Everywhere is surveillance. You have cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
People that are pulling up in cars. There are people that are going into that building. You're telling me our law enforcement in California can't tell me who's going in that building? You think I'm stupid then?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, and they should be able to bring that stuff up. Yeah, I didn't read that in yeah. That's why I followed this, and it didn't make sense. So, but I just wanted to report on it because it was crazy how it is there others? Are there others in little backward towns in the U.S.? I don't know.
I mean, at this point, if China can have biolabs here, the whole idea of Russia going into Ukraine because there's a secret American biolabs in Ukraine, it's not so far-fetched now, is it?
Yeah, no. And then, how many biolabs do we have in Ukraine? Yep, that's exactly it. Yeah, and that's it. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. That was crazy. Yeah.
Sorry to take us there.
No, that's good.
For our final story, which is, wow, it's Logan's Run, I believe. Has a new children's book. It's called "It's Okay to Kill Grandma." Let's talk a little bit about that.
So the children's, it's a book in Canada, and it's a children's book that pushes 6 to 12-year-olds kids to believe euthanizing people is okay. All right, it's just loony bin. The Medical Assistance in Dying book. It's a MAID, MAID, MAID. So it was written for children with several activities to help them through their feelings. The book even describes the 3 shots that are given to kill people. It goes through a extensive. It was way too much to talk about. But so teaching a child how a person is killed during euthanasia. Yeah, and I mean the. Makes me think of Matthew 18:6, man. If anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a huge, great millstone fastened around his neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. Not my words. These are words of the coming King and ruler of everything, Jesus Christ. Yeah, those are not my words. Those are hard words, but yeah, that's just, he talk about protecting kids. God's a kid protector.
So beware of those people who are distributing that book, who wrote it, who are actively reading it to children. The King of Kings will make you accountable for every child that thinks it's okay to kill a person for MAID.
Yes.
Ken, that is our last story, I believe.
Unless, yes, it is.
You have more. So I just wanted to let you close this out, Ken.
So I just want to tell the people that thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you again for being faithful. And, you need to read. Remember my 3: read, pray, and be faithful. Those are the 3 things that I want to be consistent at. I want to get up. I want to pray. I'm going to read his word every day. And I'm just going to be faithful to him. And those are the 3 things that you need to know. And that's, I just keep it simple. So, thank you guys for everything. Thank you guys for watching. And I hope I'm giving you information that you guys, need and that can help you, manage your way. And I hope I share it in a way that's not a downer for you, that I'm just sharing the information and then sharing God's word. That's why I wanted to put in that word, that Isaiah word in there. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank you all and encourage you. We can always, here at Moriel, not only just Ken and myself, but Jacob, Marco, Davey, we can always use your prayers. So please, we just ask,
Amen.
Please pray for us and continue to ask God to make us faithful to the calling that he has given us. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful night. God bless. Hello, and thank you for watching Moriel TV. There are so many things that are happening at Moriel Ministries worldwide, from the Philippines to Japan, to India to Africa, and back to Europe and the United States. So many of our brothers and sisters are spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to this lost world. We are so thankful for your prayers. God has been faithful and has blessed us in so many ways. If you'd like to partner with our efforts abroad and at home, please take a moment to click the link in the description and help us as the Lord leads you. Thank you very much, and God bless.